Good morning, everybody, and you're welcome to the Social Enterprise Development Fund webinar that we're hosting today to tell you all about the process of applying to our Social Enterprise Development Fund. I'm John Evoy, I'm the Social Enterprise Development Fund Manager, and this is my colleague Gwen.
Hi.
And we're going to be with you for about the next 45 minutes or so. Over those 45 minutes, we'd like to tell you a little bit about the background of the fund, but most of all about the details and the processes of applying. We have got a lot of questions sent in already, so we're going to be answering them. But if you have any questions as we go along, please write them in the chat box beside your screen. So we're just going to share the screen now, and we'll start the presentation. Okay, so basically, over the next 45 minutes, we're going to break it into 3 15-minute segments. The first 15 minutes or so, I'm going to tell you about the Social Enterprise Development Fund in some detail. Maybe I'll talk for about 10 of those minutes, depending on how many questions are coming in. And after those 10 minutes, we can take some questions. Then at the end of that 15-minute period, I'll hand you over to Gwen, who's going to talk to you in some detail about the application process. And then when all that is over, we can take all your questions. And obviously, if it goes on for longer than 45 minutes, that's absolutely great. We've got as much time as you have this morning. Okay, so the Social Enterprise Development Fund was a new fund that was set up in partnership between the Social Innovation Fund of Ireland and the local authorities. It was funded by IPB Insurance and the Department of Rural and Community Development. As far as we know, it's the biggest fund of this type to support social enterprises that's ever been in Ireland. And we're really delighted to be grateful to IPB Insurance and to the Department of Rural and Community Development through their dormant accounts funds to have created this fund, which we hope will really help move social enterprises in Ireland forward. The objective of the fund is to find and back social enterprises that are really adding to their communities through their social impact. Social enterprises have been around in Ireland for a long time, and they continue to flourish. But we hope that this initiative will even help that movement move forward. So overall, it's a 1.6 million fund. That's 800,000 from IPB Insurance over 2 years, and that's matched by 800,000 by the Department of Rural and Community Development. We're partnering with the 31 local authorities who are helping us to find the best social enterprises right across the country who know their local communities a lot better than we do. So, what does the said fund have to offer? I know many of you out there today may have joined us for some of our roadshows, which have taken place over the last month or so. We've been in 5 locations across the country, and you may have heard a lot of this information already. I suppose the most important thing to do, if you're wondering about any information, is to go to our website, which is socialinnovation.ie, and look at the Social Enterprise Development Fund page, which gives a lot of this information in quite a lot of detail. So, what does the said fund offer? So, first of all, it offers up to 8 cash grants of €50,000. These are going to be divided out between different categories across the country, namely urban, town, and rural categories. So what do we mean by urban or town or rural? Well, by urban, we mean the 5 large cities and their surrounds. By town, we mean any populated centre outside of those 5 large cities with a population of more than 5,000 people. And rural is basically everywhere else in the country. We have got some questions via email over the last couple of weeks and asked us, can we fund projects in Northern Ireland? And unfortunately, we can't. So, as well as the cash grants, we have the accelerator program. This is possibly what we're most excited about, because we really feel that these are the supports that we can offer to social enterprises that really help social enterprises move forward in their journey of development, to make them world class, if you like. They involve supports around our strategic planning, our growth planning, financial modelling, impact management and measurement, leadership development, mentoring, to name just a few. These will be bespoke for each organisation that wins one of the awards. As well as the 8 awardees get to 50,000 cash. There's quite a number of places for the most promising social enterprises on these accelerator programs. The accelerator program is going to be run in a number of locations across the country, and we really hope that some of the people who maybe apply for this year's fund may not get the 50,000 in a cash grant, but do qualify for the accelerator program, will be in an absolutely prime position to apply for the cash grant again next year. And thirdly, and also very importantly, is access to the peer network. At this stage, the Social Innovation Fund of Ireland has supported over 32 projects, and that number is always growing. And as well as having a peer access to other projects that we've already supported, a group of experienced mentors and consultants and our network here in the Social Innovation Fund, that we feel that is an invaluable resource that we'll be offering access to for some of the awardees. Thanks, Juan. So what's the timeline for the Social Innovation Fund? So as you probably know, because you're online today, that we're getting towards the end of the open call. The deadline for applications is the 28th of May at 5 p.m. and we're really strict that we can't accept any late applications, and that's really important to us. The system just doesn't allow it, first and foremost, but also it's to be fair to everybody who got their applications in on time. So really encourage people to not be hanging around at 4 or half 4 on the 28th of March wondering about, like, are they going to run out of time? So before I got this job with the Social Innovation Fund, I worked with the Irish Men's Sheds Association, and unfortunately I've been that soldier where, like, press and send at a couple of minutes to the deadline, and it's just not good it's not good practice for, first and foremost, but it's not good for your levels of anxiety either, unfortunately. So that can be easily avoided. We'd suggest having your application ready to send in a week before the deadline. It's the same process. So up until this stage, we've just in the open call, to give a little bit more background, we've had some regional events where we're promoting the fund. We really do want a spread of applications right across the country. We'd be hoping to get applications from all of the 31 local authority areas. And obviously then, in a couple of weeks, on the 28th, the open call is over and we move into the selection process. This is, I suppose, the key part is probably our busiest part of the year, but that's not your problem. And so we have a very kind of in-depth review process. The first process is that the team here in CFU review all the applications and just screen out the ones that don't fulfill the basic criteria. We'll go into that basic criteria a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But for example, if we got an application from outside of Ireland, that wouldn't get through to the next phase of the review process. Then we have an external review where we've got people from our partnering organizations to also look at the applications. By the time the reviews are done, every application will be after getting a number of reviews. At that stage, there will be a shortlist created of people who will be invited to interview. These interviews will take place between the 30th of April and the 4th of May. And yeah, so if you're lucky enough to come to be invited to interview, or maybe not lucky enough, should I say good enough, or you've obviously put your best foot forward at that stage in the application, and well done on that, we may ask you for extra information at that stage. During this period, and particularly after the interviews, as we move into like letting the people who won, whether it was a place in the accelerator program or the cash grant or both, we'll enter into a contracting stage, which involves a lot of due diligence, checking of references, checking of your accounts, and things like that. And we intend to announce the awardees at the end of June in this year. So after the end of June, our accelerator program, and this will be the bulk of the non-financial supports, will kick into place, and these will take most of the rest of the year to roll out. Basically, it's going to be a very intensive 6-month accelerator program. We'll be expecting the people on the accelerator program to meet up approximately once per month, attend workshops and attend one-to-one sessions with consultants and mentors, and to produce some really quality outputs that would put your social enterprise on a new trajectory. Well, that's what we intend to happen anyway. And then finally, just coming to the end of the year, the date is not nailed down. We will have a showcase event to I suppose celebrate all the good work that you've done throughout the year. So we've got some questions coming in already. Gwen, will we take some of them now, or will we go into the criteria?
Sure. So Gary asks, what if your project aims to cover all three categories? And I think that came in when you were talking about urban, town, and rural.
Howdy, Gary. I didn't see you the other night. So on the application form, Gary, you have to pick one of those wherever you're going to have the biggest impact, and that's a decision you have to make, and that's the way we're dealing with that. Thanks for your question.
Joseph asked if the slide deck is available for download. I'll say, Joseph, you can email in hello@socialinnovation.ie and we'll send that to you.
Absolutely. Perfect.
Okay. Leah, I think that says, asks, what are the main areas you would like the videos in the application to focus on?
Okay, so maybe we'll do that a little bit later when Gwen is speaking to you about the application process. There's a couple of questions that are just in that question about the video on the details, and I'm hesitating because there's very specific answers to that, and it's not rolling off my tongue. So bear with us for a couple of seconds.
Okay, and then we have, can a DAC be classified as a social enterprise?
Sorry, I don't really know what a DAC is. Could you email or just text back in there into the chat and explain that a little bit more? Thank you.
Okay, and then Sharon asks, on the application scale, could you advise on the level of detail when a social enterprise is at an early stage? Around scale.
All right, very good. So yeah, so scaling the impact of your organization is one of the things that we'll be assessing the applications through. So when you're at a very early stage, I suppose it's very important for us to say, and the screen is we're moving into the standard criteria on screen right now, that to qualify for this fund, your project must be up and running, and we're not a very early stage supporter. This fund is there to support existing and established social enterprises. So that sometimes isn't very clear what's the difference between early stage and established, but you must at least be after have your project up and running and have tested it in some way, and if possible have some evidence of the social impact that you've created. So I'm just going to continue to run down through some of the standard criteria that's there on screen. I mentioned that it's up and running. This is the standard criteria that we use across all of the social innovation funds. And so it's standard. So project must be up and running. We don't fund idea stage projects. It must attend to a critical social issue. And that's obviously not as clear cut. Different people have different opinions, but you have to make the case for the social issue that you're dealing with in the application process. Your project must be innovative in the Irish context. What we mean by that, this could be the first time it's been done this way ever. It could be the first time it's been done this way in Ireland, or it could be just slightly different from what's been done before, but showing better results. But you need to be doing something. If you're just continuing to roll out something that's established in the country, that's not very innovative in this context. So it must have the potential to scale or replicate in Ireland. And that really is one of our core criteria. Is the project you're doing, if you're based in Boring, County Offaly, for example, and you've got a great idea, like we want to see that idea replicated right across the country. If you're able to help people with disabilities in a certain way, or help young people or old people, whatever the social issue is that you're dealing with, let's see that happen right across the country. And we'd like to see evidence. This is back to the first point, that your project goes up and running. We need rather than you just saying, oh yeah, we're up and running, you have to be able to prove that to us in some way. And as I mentioned before, we can't fund projects that are not having their main impact here in the Republic of Ireland. Applications must always come from a non-profit. That's part of our agreement with government. I've been asked a few times, what does that mean in this context? Basically, the vast majority of non-profit organisations that we deal with are CLGs, that's companies limited by guarantee. There are one or two other possibilities, such as co-ops, but even that gets a little bit more complicated because not all co-ops are non-profit. A small number of co-ops would, for example, pay dividends to their shareholders at the end of the year. Their shareholders may be their workers, but in that case, it's not. We don't consider it non-profit for this purpose. Okay, and some more advantageous criteria. So if the projects come from, if your project comes from a project, if you know what I mean, that has a strong record of social impact. So I suppose to explain what I'm saying there a little bit, one of it would be we accept projects from social enterprises in their own right, and that's the full size of their organization. But we also accept applications from social enterprises that are a small part of the work of larger non-profit organizations such as charities. And in either of those cases, we would like to have to see your record of social impact. We need to see what makes, I suppose, a social enterprise different than other charities or from other social purpose organizations is that they earn some of their income by generating their income through selling goods or services. We need to see how you're doing that, or at least have really strong potential to do that. And another key thing is that how do you, if you are successful at creating a surplus, how do you reinvest that surplus into the organization's social mission? Another thing, which will be more applicable to some organizations than others, we want to know, does your organization have the potential to create some jobs? Okay, so yeah, we'll do one or two more slides and then we'll go back into questions. What projects are not eligible? Or maybe not even what projects, what is also, as well as what projects are not eligible. Some people, the project may be eligible, but then they apply to spend the money on certain things, and some things are eligible and some things are not. So I want to explain that a little bit. So projects that are seeking funds for scholarship, you can all read what's on screen there today. The thing that we've been asked about most from this slide would have been about capital items. So we don't fund capital items. In other words, we don't fund infrastructure or buildings or vans. Other things that we've been asked about that, like, are they capital or not? Projects such as polytunnels or refurbishing buildings. And so we would consider, yes, they are capital items. And there's a couple of reasons why we don't do that. And one of it is that I know that there are other funds out there that people can apply to from social enterprises for capital funding, but also as well, we just feel we can't do everything. And that we'll already have to be, unfortunately, giving bad news to the vast majority of those who apply. So if there's 8 people going to get cash grants and maybe another 20 or 25 get on the accelerator program, we might have to say no and give bad news to maybe 100 or so applicants. And we feel if that we were allowing people to apply for capital items, maybe that there would be twice as many people applying, and we'd unfortunately have to disappoint twice as many people. The other things that are up there worth noticing are probably our charity shops. We feel charity shops do a really good job in this country. However, very difficult for them to scale up at this point because there's so many charity shops already in Ireland that we feel that we're saving people the bother of applying, to be honest, because we feel it would be very difficult for a charity shop to score well under the scalability criteria. Okay, so I know there's some questions still coming in. Will I leave this slide for you, Gwen, or will I move on?
Yeah. So should we answer a couple of questions? Okay, so does a DAC count as a social enterprise? The question from before from Leah, that's a designated activity company. I think we might have to get back to you on that one, Leah. And then we've got Joseph, does a project that is carried out 2 pilots before rolling out nationwide count as a project up and running?
Yes. Yes to Joseph. And Leah, would you mind emailing in at hello@socialinnovation.ie, because I have to be honest, I've never heard of a designated activity company before. Sorry that I can't answer that question more straightforwardly. So will I hand you over to you now, Gwen?
Yeah.
Are you happy?
Yeah. Great. So most of you have probably already seen this. This is the Social Enterprise Development Fund webpage. This has the criteria and eligibility, which John just ran through, explanation of why it is and what it is. So we've got also down at the bottom here under frequently asked questions. I know that we had a question around the video. I think that was also from Leah around what the main areas we would look for in the video. So we have here a guide to uploading video, and then underneath there's what is expected of the video. This is also outlined in the application form, which I'll go into shortly. We go over the kind of few points that we're looking for in the video. I don't know if, John, you wanted to say anything more on that?
Yeah, I think when we go into the application form in a couple of minutes, we can come back to that. I think that guide for uploading videos is really good. It's tailored specifically for Vimeo, but you can also upload them to YouTube.
Great. So then we also have here as well under frequently asked questions, can you explain what you mean by output? So this is a little glossary of terms we've done up when it loads. Obviously, people use a lot of different jargon in these application forms, and we know that you do a lot of them. So we tried to just give you a little snapshot into what we mean by certain words. So when we say innovation, we mean what's new about your solution, method, idea, product, etc. When we're asking you about your goals, we mean set targets that are quantifiable or measurable. When we're talking about scalability, obviously one of our main criteria, I know John went over it, but whether your project is capable of and dedicated to growing its impact and reach. So hopefully that's helpful. We also have underneath that back here in the SED Fund webpage, under the same question, here is a case study that we've made up to try to show those terms in action. So we have here again, goal, but we have this specific case study, which is Project Youth Employment. So their goal is to find employment for a group of 10 young people. We have output, 11 young people gained employment as a result of the program. We have down here the model, which is really useful in the application form. I think it's the step-by-step guide. So here's what we'd be looking for with that. We want to see exactly what it is you do and in the order that you do it. So with that, I'll just go back into the SED Fund webpage, and up at the top and as well in the middle, it's linked to the application form. So you go there, you create a profile. It explains how to do that over here in the left-hand side. And you need to create a new account even if you've applied to other funds on this system before, because they're not connected. You need to create a profile. I've already done that. And then once you've done that, you can click into your application form. A question we've been getting a few times is whether you can print your application form. You can go into the little I once you've clicked into the application, and you can print right there up in the right-hand corner. So you can also save that as a PDF that way. Just going back in there, when you want to work on the actual application, write it. So let's see, this is all fairly straightforward. Here is where we ask about the video. So coming back to that, we want it to be short, just 2 to 3 minutes. Tell us who you are, a brief background to your social enterprise, the problem you're trying to solve, and what's innovative about your social enterprise. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, very good. So I'll just jump in as well. I think one of the things we're really clear about the video is that we're not concerned about production quality, about special effects or music or anything like that. It really is about just answering the few questions you're asked. And one of the reasons we have that up there is because application processes are take a lot of time and energy, and some people are really good at doing applications, and others who may not be as good at doing applications but have equally as good a project. That the video gives us a sense of who you are, that it's not completely based on your ability to write tip-top funding applications.
I'll say too, with regard to the video, it's actually to your detriment if you're using, say, a 6 or 7 minute video that you previously had made that showcases what your project or your organization is doing, but wasn't made specifically for this, so doesn't answer those questions that we're asking you. Okay, so step-by-step guide down here in question 7. This is what I was saying that's in the case study, down in frequently asked questions. That's also referred to as a model. And go through scaling, growing, investment readiness, thing there. So when we get into finances, the entire finances section is project specific. So that includes below where it says income and expenditure.
So there's just one query that we've got a couple of times via email, and that's just in the financials, in expenditure, and people have asked, what do we mean by generated costs, or so revenue generation. So what we mean by revenue generation is revenue generation costs. So that could include, like, if you have to employ a salesperson or marketing costs, and we just wanted to be clear about that.
Great. Yeah, so the referees down there, save draft and save essentially do the same thing. It looks like it might be different, but don't worry. That'll just save your draft for you. And then it says it back in the instructions. When this turns green, that means that all of your questions are ready and filled out, and you can submit your application.
Very good.
Oh, I just wanted to go over one more thing, which was our kind of top tips. Whoops. Get back over there. Top tips for writing great applications. John already went through this at the beginning. Start early. It's not a last-minute job. Read all of the background information, including criteria, frequently asked questions, and supporting documents. So we have a lot of information available on that webpage, which we've worked hard to try to condense and make as accurate and helpful as possible. So please do give that a read. Don't cut and paste from other applications or from your website. It really shows when you're not answering the questions, and it makes it a little bit confusing to read, which is, again, it's just not that helpful to your application. And that, again, goes to starting early. We've already gone over this, that we care about the content and not the production quality of the video. We're just looking to see what you're doing and why you care about it. We want that to shine through. Answer the questions that are asked. That's a fairly clear one. And then get someone or more than one person, if you can, to review your application. So obviously, we all miss things when we're writing them ourselves, so it's really helpful. I will just go over to John, and I might put this back on us for now. Hey, hi.
Hi again, everybody, and thanks, Gwen. So we're getting some questions coming in here, and that's great, and please send them in. I'll just take a few questions now. We can actually take as many questions as you have. If we do answer a question and you feel you don't have enough clarity, feel free to just say that in the text box, and we'll try. So this is from Brian, and is there a percentage that must be earned income currently or potentially for the proposed project? So we don't have a straight answer on that. We definitely, one of the main characteristics and standard criteria is that your project must have some earned income by selling goods or services, and there is no minimum at this point. We would feel that, so when you're applying, there's no minimum. We would feel that if you can prove if you've got some earned income, that's obviously very advantageous. But we would feel that also that if you go on the journey of the accelerator program and the development, that one of the things we can help you with is to increase that percentage over a period of time. That would be one of the objectives of the accelerator program. So, and this comes in from Linda. In the application, do C scheme workers count as paid employees? So yes, in the application, you can put them down as paid employees. And my third question for now from Lochlan is the development of an online educational platform considered capital? And we would say no, it's very bespoke. But what we would need to know is that if you invest in that, our money in that, we need to see how that's going to improve your scale and help you scale across the country and improve your reach. So very good. So now I'm going to hand you back to Gwen.
Okay, we have a question. Do you have any details on how the application is scored? John went over in the beginning that we have several reviews, internal and external, of applications. We do. I would basically say we score against criteria, core and advantageous. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's the core and advantageous. So against the 5 or 6 things we mentioned, is your project innovative? Is your project got the potential to scale? Is your project up and running and can demonstrate that? Is your project based here in the Republic of Ireland? That's a yes/no answer. does it have the potential to create jobs? That's one of the advantageous criteria, and not the standard criteria. So it's not a simple scoring how many out of 5 or how many out of 10, because there's so many reviews and that people have different opinions, and it's hard to relate. So I could give somebody a 4 out of 5, and Gwen could give them a 3 out of 5. So all that is balanced out before the shortlisting process.
Great. So we have a question from James. If your proposal costs more than 50,000, do you need to show the balance of funding is in place?
What we would need to know if we were going to invest in you, that our money is going to be spent really well, and that's a wise investment on our behalf. So if your project is going to cost more than the 50,000, we'd at least need to know that, like, when our 50,000 is invested, it's a wise investment. So if that means that your project just doesn't work at all without the remainder of the investment, then yes, we would need to know it's in place. But if you can do like 80% of your work because you've got 80% of your money, then that's something that wouldn't rule you out.
Okay, so then we have, is the income and expenditure to be included for the new proposal or for the organization as a whole? So that's project specific. So if you don't have that yet, those are projected costs.
Yeah, very good. So we've got a few more questions coming in here. So one of the questions is, can somebody apply? We recently had a Resilient Community application fund open, and Resilient Community Fund, and people have applied for that, are wondering, can they also apply for this fund? So the answer is yes, that we treat all applications on their own merit, regardless of other funds that we may have open at the time. So another question here. So we've got somebody who emailed us in wondering, can they attach extra documents to the application form, that they were they had a strategic plan that would have liked to send us, and unfortunately, no, we've got no mechanism for that. So we want to keep the process the same for everybody. So I suppose it's your job to put the key parts of that strategic plan into the appropriate questions in the application form. So I think our colleague Aisling is passing us over one or two more questions that are coming in the text box. Here's a quick one. So one or two people after starting, they logged into the system, put in their emails, which is very useful for us, because once you've gone through that first part of the application process, and your email is in, we can send you emails regularly. There can be information, for example, about this webinar that I'm sure a lot of you got. But some people, after going through that phase and reading the selection criteria, realised that either now is not the time for their project, or it may not qualify, and they wanted to withdraw their application. So the easiest way to withdraw an application, which is completely up to yourself at any time, is just to delete your profile. If you send us an email saying please delete, take us off the mailing list or delete the profile, we'd really prefer if you did that yourselves, because it could be some important information, and we'd rather not delete anybody's information. We'd rather they did it themselves. So we've got a couple of minutes left if anybody would like to send in one or two questions. I suppose it's very important to say that this webinar will remain up on YouTube and it can be viewed back later. You can share it with your friends if you want to.
I might just call these out to you if that's okay. As part of, so Joseph Cabinet just asked a question. As part of our project scaling plan, we intend to pilot in Northern Ireland in year 2. Will this strategy disqualify us from our need for applying for the fund and now to scale across 26 countries in year 1? Or counties in year 1.
James, was it?
Joseph,
sorry, Joseph. Just no is the answer to your question about if you have intentions to scale to Northern Ireland eventually, or to every other country in the world. That's something we'd really love to see happening, but we would like to see our investment is focused on your impact here in the Republic of Ireland.
There's one here from Leah. When highlighting reinvestment, can it be through expansion?
I don't really know what that means. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll get Leah to clarify that.
Yeah, thanks.
There's just one from SpeedPack as well, just around is the criteria weighted in terms of how we score?
So maybe I could just answer that then. What I would say is if you consider the project to be a fit for the fund, that's kind of the main thing I would say. And what I would stress is that if you don't fit the core criteria, the advantageous criteria won't really apply to you. So unless you are 100% filling the core criteria, the other criteria are kind of secondary. So just ensure you're filling them first.
Yeah, so you could read that as it's the core criteria is weighted more heavily.
Yeah. So that's it at the moment here.
Great.
Okay, so just before we wrap up, you've got a few minutes still to ask questions. You can always ask me further questions at john@socialinnovation.ie. I'd really ask you to ask me those questions over the next few days. Please don't leave it to the last few days before the deadline. It gets really super busy, and people are become under pressure to get the applications done. I couldn't stress this point more. Please get your applications done a few days even before the application deadline. Like we mentioned, the slide deck that we showed today will be available. If anybody wants it, they can email in at hello@socialinnovation.ie and we can send it to you. And that this presentation and the webinar will remain up on YouTube. So just checking any more, Ashley?
So sorry, Leah's just clarified here. If we were lucky enough to be awarded your grant, could it be used solely for expansion? And so that's around scale.
Yes, absolutely, Leah. Yeah, we'd love to see you scale up your organization.
Okay. And then there's two kind of questions coming in around here. So Handy Helpers is asking, they're a long-established organization, circa over 10 years experience, but the project is only up and running since May 2017. Will their previous track record count?
To a degree, yeah. So one of the questions, you have a strong track record of leadership in the advantageous criteria. So yes, it would. And having your new project up from 2017 being the innovative project that you're applying for funding on. So both those would be hitting the mark, is from what I know.
Great.
Yeah.
And Elaine has a very similar question. So her project's been up and running for 10 years. And the funding would go towards scaling the project by adding other elements for rural schools. Is this allowed?
It is. Once the other elements that you're adding aren't brand new ideas, we'd want to see that those other elements that you're adding are tested and up and running. Yep. That's it then.
Okay.
So thanks very much, everybody, for joining us today. And please get in touch if there's any further questions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.